They didn't have a mouth like we had, and that's open under their nose.
A few days ago, a terrified user shared a horror story about his dad's time in Antarctica. His dad found strange creatures, not made by modern science, but awoken from a very long sleep since the Ice Age, using new DNA techniques. These scary creatures were real, just like a creature seen in a Google Earth image. Even though some people didn't believe him, David stuck to his story, telling about his dad's troubles, like being sent home and getting in trouble with the military. David hasn't been online in a while, but he promised to come back with more proof. Everyone is waiting for more news about this strange mystery in Antarctica. David explained that his father had gathered evidence suggesting that these creatures were not products of the current age, but beings from the deep recesses of time. They have been frozen, he said, during the long expanse of the Ice Age. It was only with the arrival of modern DNA technologies that these ancient creatures were awakened from their millennia-long slumber. Yet their revival wasn't just a reawakening. It was accompanied by extensive biological modifications, turning them into nightmarish beings. This revelation stirred waves of shock and disbelief across the forum. Users began questioning the authenticity of the claims. Could such a thing truly exist? Were the users being pranked? In the face of the mounting skepticism, David held firm. He reiterated his stance, and he asserted that his father was deported back to the United States for his excessive base snooping. There, he faced a court-martial for his actions. Despite the drama that unfolded with his father, David himself was untouched by the legal repercussions. He had never put pen to paper on a non-disclosure agreement, leaving him free to broadcast this bone-chilling reality to the world. David had kept this information to himself, only choosing to reveal it on that particular Sunday in February. With his story told, David excused himself from the threat, but not before promising to seek the assistance of experts who could help him retrieve the data hidden within his father's old Apple II computer. He hoped that this data could substantiate his claims and shed further light on the horrifying occurrences transpiring in the desolate Antarctic landscape. Since that day, David's online presence has been noticeably absent. His promising return, equipped with more evidence and future revelations, has yet to happen. The online community users have been left in suspense, eagerly anticipating his next post. Speculation is rife, and theories are spun, and the mystery of the monstrous Antarctic creature remains an enigma. A profound sense of unease hangs in the digital ether as the world waits for David's return. Meanwhile, in the icy wilderness of the Antarctic, something unexplainable continues to stir, leaving experts at a loss for words. To make it easier to understand, David started to give human-like qualities to this mysterious thing. He said that his dad, who was a dedicated doctor, was sent to McMurdo in the 1990s. David didn't share the specific year to keep his identity a secret, which was very smart, since his dad was the only doctor in that isolated area. According to David, his father wasn't just a physician. He was also an adventurer at heart, frequently embarking on exploratory research missions. David mentioned some locations, ominously shrouded in secrecy, that were strictly off-limits to the uninitiated. These regions weren't environmentally hazardous. Rather, people shied away from them out of an unspoken fear. David recalled the occasion when a seasoned researcher, a veteran of 10 years, turned as white as the Antarctic snow when his father innocently asked about these forbidden zones. These specific coordinates, 30 miles south and 10 miles east of McMurdo. To avoid this nebulous area, even the most adventurous of explorers would willingly add an extra 5-mile detour to their journeys. On his online missive, David claimed that his father had encountered the grotesque, spider-like creatures supposedly imaged on Google Earth. These monstrous beings, equipped with 5 menacing legs, supposedly roamed the Arctic nights, sowing fear and intrigue in equal measure. David went on to add that numerous military personnel had seen these nightmarish creatures, and his father had even managed to document their presence through Polaroid images of the tracks that they left behind. The footprints, he said, were spaced at intervals of 30 to 40 human steps, an unsettling testament to the creature's imposing stature. Despite the powerful presence of the military and the rich evidence at their disposal, a chilling silence had descended over all those who had witnessed the creature's traces. The reality was perhaps too terrifying to confront, leaving the men to huddle together in fearful silence as they contemplated the mysteries lurking within the icy wastelands of Antarctica. On a day that felt strangely cold and filled with a sense of impending doom, David's father, who was the only doctor at the McMurdo base, decided to investigate further into this mysterious creature called cryptids. David shared this captivating story in an online discussion. However, not long after his father started asking questions, his higher-ups became aware of his inquiries. News of his father's curiosity spread like wildfire through the different ranks of the base, and he was quickly called into their office, which was cold and unwelcoming. The people there had stern expressions, and they used harsh words. They warned him strongly, and they threatened to fire him, not wanting their operations to be disrupted by anyone they considered unwanted or too intelligent. Fear gripped David's father's heart, and he backed down, silenced by the combination of authorities and threats. However, the strange events didn't stop. One day, David's father was suddenly called to treat a patient whose identity was unknown. The man was in a state of confusion, with carefully cut wounds on his body. He kept saying, "They were frozen. We thought they were dead." Officially, it was claimed the man had fallen during treatment, but David's father's medical instincts raised concerns. The cuts were too precise to have been caused by rocks, and there were no signs of surgical tools being used. The delirious man's mutterings grew more intense, repeatedly saying, "We let them loose. We let them loose." A nervous guard, clearly uneasy, tried to silence him. It was at this point that David's father intervened, insisting that the man needed an oxygen mask instead of being gagged or he would die. Once the wounded man was evacuated from the continent, David's father was taken into custody and cut off from the familiar world that he knew. While David was posting his accounts, his thread exploded with user activity. Skeptical voices demanded tangible evidence to substantiate his wild claims. Responding to the clamor, David shared photographs of a plaque that his father had received, a testament to his service at the base. Further, he hinted at a trove of data meticulously archived by his father on an old computer. Hours later, David posted a picture with a vintage Apple II computer, fueling the curiosity of the audience with another fascinating story. This time, David narrated an incident where his father was out in the field, driving with his colleagues. In the midst of their journey, they collided with something. David's father ventured out of the vehicle to investigate and was taken aback by what he encountered. An entity resembling the creature from the movie Cloverfield. This monstrosity, with limbs as slender as spiders, lay flattened by the impact of the vehicle. Before he could fully comprehend the sight, he was rushed back into the car with stern orders to maintain silence. This narration only deepened the mystery shrouding the McMurdo base. Was it home to a grotesque, malformed creature of the Arctic? Or was it something more nightmarish that defied the norms of nature? David then began to shed light on a grim aspect of the base's operations. He claimed the death toll in the icy wastelands of Antarctica was higher than anybody would have thought. Some were torn apart limb by limb, abandoned in the merciless cold to freeze to death. David's father had to thaw the lifeless bodies out so he could perform his duty, stitch them up, and prepare them for their final journey home. One of the people David's father encountered was a man who was in truly horrifying state. His lower body was just gone, and his intestines were horribly exposed. His upper body was covered in scratches and bite marks, as if something had forcefully opened his ribcage with claws. David's father had the difficult and gruesome job of preparing the remains of the body for the man's family. But what was most disturbing was the attempts to mask the truth. Despite the macabre evidence, the man's death was attributed to hypothermia. Hypothermia. Just like that, another life claimed by the harsh Antarctic conditions. Or so it was claimed. But David's father knew better. And now, thanks to David's relentless narration, so did the rest of the world, leaving everybody in trepidation, contemplating the dark secrets hidden within the icy recesses of Antarctica, where the solemn silence was only broken by the chattering of teeth and the crunching of boots against the perpetual frost. He was surrounded by a procession of men, enigmatic and obscure, only known by their titles, the Arctic warfare officers. The very essence of their identities was shrouded in secrecy, rendering them faceless soldiers shipped off, most likely to their untimely demise. In the face of this chilling reality, David's father was left to grapple with a palpable sense of dread and confusion. He bore witness to horrific sights, the cold bodies of researchers and officers alike frozen in the grip of death, their stories left untold. The magnitude of the atrocities he was witnessing left him speechless. Unable to share his concerns or voice his fears, he had no choice but to drown his thoughts and keep his head down in silent obedience expected of him. Then one day, fate intervened. When dealing with a deceased scientist's remains, his fingers brushed against the rough texture of a book tucked away in a pocket. It was a diary. It was teeming with illustrations and descriptions of creatures whose existence just defied all logic, all rationality. His mind raced with questions. What secrets did this base hold? What untold experiments were being carried out? Fueled by an insatiable curiosity, he confronted a fellow researcher with the enigmatic diary. But the woman remained as unyielding as the icy terrain that they were stationed on. His persistent inquiries only earned him an ultimatum: silence or exile, with the threat of deportation to the United States hanging over his head like an ominous cloud. Unwilling to be intimidated, David's father seized an opportunity when the base's commanding officer was absent. He dived headfirst into the labyrinth of the officer's documents and was left breathless by the revelations. Detailed records of unimaginable operations stared back at him, unveiling repeated excursions, inexplicable experiments, and their shocking outcomes. He realized that he was unwittingly caught in the sinister web of the base's operations, which aimed to fabricate military-grade animals for warfare. Yes. However, his clandestine investigation didn't remain a secret for very long. The piercing sound of the siren echoed through the silence of the base, signaling the onset of his arrest. He was caught off guard, and he was forcibly yanked away from the damning evidence that he had unearthed. His relentless quest for the truth had led to his own downfall. He had pried too much, and now he had to pay the price. Yet David's father was not one to yield easily, as one could probably tell by this point. He was acutely aware of the ticking clock, counting down the minutes until his inevitable expulsion from the base and back to the U.S. So he dedicated every remaining moment to collect evidence and testimonies, hoping that he could shine a light on the atrocities being committed within the cold, desolate walls of the Arctic base. The chilling echo of his own impending deportation fueled his determination, pushing him to collect as much information as he could to expose this horrifying truth. Days before he was due to depart on his journey, David found himself roused from sleep by an unexpected visitor. His father, typically stoic and a distant figure, was interrupted from his morning routine by the appearance of a man named Jones. David listened as the stranger explained that he had recently returned from a secretive mission and urgently needed to share his experiences. David's father, a bit annoyed with the abrupt disturbance, asked Jones to return at a more appropriate hour, but the man seemed undeterred, continuing his explanation. The story began, Jones detailed, with him raising at the first light of day. Before joining a specialized team of scientists, they enacted a daring scheme. Abandoning their assigned military vehicle, they took possession of a fortified truck, an imposing machine that boasted an M134 minigun and an arsenal of additional weapons. Once fully equipped, they took off in the direction of the southwest. Their destination? An unassuming building that hid the astonishing secrets within its walls that, well, we're going to reveal some of. As Jones elaborated, the building was revealed to be a concealed government laboratory, akin to the ones typically depicted in high-stakes thrillers, literally out of a movie. As they breached the entrance, they were met with an unexpected sight, an image that would forever be imprinted on Jones's memory. A Chinese testing facility, stumbled upon by sheer accident, lay in ruin, lay in chaos. They ventured deeper into the complex, with the entrance cleared and eerily quiet hallways littered with lifeless bodies. This led them to a labyrinthian network of underground tunnels, hiding a concealed laboratory filled with grotesque sights of broken cages, more unidentifiable bodies, and peculiar machinery. As Jones confessed to David's father, the spectacle they encountered was a tiny piece of an infinitely larger puzzle. I mean, this sounds like it's a creepypasta. Honestly, this is insane, right? The tunnels served a purpose far beyond facilitating pedestrian movement. Bullet trains darted through these subterranean pathways, connecting diverse cities like Hong Kong, New York, Melbourne, London, in a web of rapid transit. But the revelations didn't stop there. Amid the remnants of the disarrayed lab, they discovered a horrifying sight. Enclosed within a cage, the lifeless body of an innocent human infant was found, accompanied by two monstrous spider-like creatures. These terrifying beings seemed unnatural, like cruel experiments gone awry. The grisly evidence pointed to an unimaginable truth. The Chinese facility was a gruesome hub of human trafficking. These innocents, children hailing from all over the globe, were cruelly sacrificed as fodder to these horrifying creatures. The Chinese outpost was a horrifying gateway to human trafficking, with many of the victims tragically ending up in the insatiable maws of the synthetic beasts of war. Concluding his morbid tale, Jones conveyed that clearing the devastated building and piecing together the grim story had consumed over 18 agonizing hours. As David looked at his father's face, he saw something that he had never seen before. It was a deep, abiding sense of sorrow, anger, and disbelief etched into the older man's features. But there was something else too. The grim determination that David found both inspiring and terrifying. His father looked at Jones, without a word, and he stood. David knew then that his life and the lives of those around him would never be the same. David found himself at the center of relentless inquiries from online users, each question peeling back another layer of the complex and bewildering story. His father, having carefully analyzed the evidence collected from a multitude of sources, included first-hand accounts and eyewitness testimonies, and they deduced that the monstrous creatures had not been conceived in a laboratory. Instead, their existence stretched back to the mists of time, to an era before mankind had asserted its dominion over the Earth. According to his father's conclusions, these primordial beings had been preserved in the icy grip of the Ice Age, trapped in an ancient slumber until the advent of modern DNA technologies. Awakened from their age-old sleep, they were subjected to a plethora of biological modifications, resulting in the terrifying creatures that now threatened the world. In the aftermath of these revelations, David's father was forcibly returned to the United States. His crimes of venturing too far into the classified territory had caught the attention of those who wielded power. He was subjected to the rigorous judicial process of a court-martial. Yet David found himself no shackles binding him to silence. He had never signed a non-disclosure agreement that prevented him from disclosing the chilling truth to the world. Despite the weight of the revelations, David carefully guarded the secrets until a few days ago, coincided with a time traditionally dedicated to love and affection. It was then that he entrusted his son with the responsibility of unleashing the chilling truth upon an unsuspecting world. Having shared his father's tale, David decided to exit the online thread, but not before announcing his intention to seek help from specialists. He needed to extract data from his father's Apple II computer to corroborate the terrifying discoveries and shed light on the sinister happenings in the clandestine base. David left these thread users in a whirl of shock and curiosity, promising to bring undeniable evidence of the atrocities perpetrated on the hidden continent. However, David's digital silence had been stretched on since. He hasn't returned to the forum, leaving the users anxiously anticipating his next post. Each day without David's update magnifies the intrigue, sending ripples of apprehension across the online community. The threads pulse with unanswered questions, wild theories, and the palpable sense of fear that comes with the realization of a hidden reality lurking beneath the everyday facade. The world waits, holding its collective breath for David's return and the future revelations that he promised to bring. The chilling mystery of the Antarctic creatures and the hidden base has captivated the online community. I mean, to me, it sounds like a great movie, and I can't wait to see it. And it leaves us all on the edge of our seats, at least I would assume so. But what are your thoughts on the story? Do you think that there could be some truth to David's claims, or do you think it's a fabricated clout-chasing tale? Yeah, there's a lot of clout-chasing out there, so, take everything with a grain of salt, boys and girls. Share your thoughts with us in the comment section down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more. Okay, bye.